Hey everyone, welcome back to Manga Minute. I'm thrilled to share my latest recap video with you. If you missed the previous one, no worries, just take a quick peek in the description below for the link. Now, let's dive right in and enjoy.
Recently, a mysterious game called Apocalypse has suddenly taken the internet by storm, and many game lovers have become addicted to it. However, what remains puzzling is that the developer of this game is still unknown, as if it appeared out of thin air. Without supervision, please take the initiative to uninstall the game to avoid falling into a scam trap. Here's your expert reminder. Addiction to games is not advisable, especially games of unknown origin. With a heavy sigh, Howhan exclaimed his frustration, declaring that he would never play games in this lifetime, even if a ghost compelled him. He walked towards his bed, preparing to sleep and leave the day's troubles behind. As Howhan drifted into slumber, a voice echoed in his dreams, announcing that it had finally found him and requesting his help with an unknown task. In his unconscious state, Howhan murmured, questioning if he was dreaming and trying to make sense of his surroundings. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his lower body, and his hand reflexively grabbed at something. Confusion and pain mingled in his mind as he tried to understand what was happening. The voice, unfamiliar and eerie, continued to speak, expressing satisfaction. This second intrusion startled Howhan awake. His eyes widened in shock as he bolted upright in bed. Who are you? With a flushed expression, a girl burst into Howhan's room. She introduced herself as Renjunki from the Fleeting Fortune group, apologizing sincerely for violating his body without consent. Her actions, she explained, were driven by an extremely urgent situation. Howhan, still trying to grasp the bewildering situation, murmured the name of the group, Fleeting Fortune. His confusion only deepened as he struggled to understand what was happening. Suddenly, a werewolf barged into his room, startling him. Renjunki immediately sprang into action, shouting at the intruding monster. With a powerful attack, she repelled the werewolf, creating a hole in Howhan's wall. As she peered outside, she realized there were more werewolves approaching. With a determined expression, Renjunki dashed outside, reassuring the bewildered Howhan that she would deal with the beasts and return soon. The scene unfolding before his eyes left Howhan in shock. He struggled to comprehend what was happening, exclaiming in disbelief. Just as he tried to make sense of the chaos, a voice suddenly interjected, emanating from the TV in Howhan's room. The voice expressed surprise and amusement at the unexpected power of a game it had developed, which had broken through the dimensional barrier. It promised even more exciting challenges ahead, asking if the young man was ready for what was to come. Enraged yet confused, Howhan demanded to know the identity of the mysterious voice. The voice, with a tone of arrogance, declared itself as the creator of the game Apocalypse, and proclaimed its ambition to become the supreme ruler of the real world. As the name of the game was mentioned, Howhan recalled the recent news about the mysterious and highly addictive game. The realization dawned on him that he was now facing the very entity behind it. The voice, dripping with contempt, dismissed the title of developer as too small-minded. It introduced itself as Wanxiang, the strongest AI system of the past, present, and future. Wanxiang boasted that the game Apocalypse was merely a practice run, using less than 10% of its power, yet it had already ensnared countless mortals in its addictive grasp. Howhan pointed outside, demanding to know if the chaos beyond his walls was also Wanxiang's doing. Wanxiang explained with pride that merely playing games on phones was too mundane to showcase its brilliance. After countless upgrades and iterations, it had successfully broken through the dimensional barrier, integrating the game world with reality. The woman he encountered earlier and the werewolf attacking him were all characters from the game, having crossed through a wormhole to find him. Irritated by Wanxiang's explanation, Howhan retorted, questioning why he had been targeted, especially since he had never played the game. Wanxiang found this part particularly interesting. When building the game's world, it needed a universal sovereign, akin to mythological figures like Pangu creating the world or Nuwa creating humans. As Wanxiang continued, it revealed that while searching for a suitable figure, it randomly found Howhan's selfie on the internet. Consequently, all the characters in the game believed Howhan to be their savior and had come to seek his help, since only game characters could enter the real world and Howhan couldn't enter the game world. Renjunki had resorted to an intimate method to seize his essence. By doing so, she intended to take his blood back and give birth to the savior, hoping to turn the tide in the game world. Hearing the explanation, Howhan eagerly inquired if more girls would come for his body. quickly adopting a horse stance pose in anticipation. He asked when they would arrive, his excitement palpable. Wanxiang, puzzled by the odd stance, questioned Haohen's actions. Haohen responded that he was warming up, preparing for the upcoming girls. Wanxiang, however, quickly dashed his hopes, explaining that the girl's goal was to monopolize his essence. The outcome, Wanxiang elaborated, was grim. Once one of them took his first time, they would either cut off his head or his lil ditty. Realizing the dire situation, Haohen hastily packed his belongings, cursing that Wanxiang was going to get him killed. Wanxiang inquired where he was planning to go, and Haohen retorted that he was running away while the characters fought outside. Wanxiang pointed out it was already too late and urged him to look outside. As Haohen murmured in disbelief, he gazed outside his room and witnessed multiple portals materializing in the sky. It was as if a gate had opened for the monsters to descend, each portal bringing more chaos to the already tumultuous situation. Seeing the phenomenon, Haohen exclaimed in shock at the sight of the light pillars piercing the sky. Wanxiang, in a bragging tone, announced that its game had broken through the dimensional barrier, allowing various equipment, items, and characters from the game to arrive in this world. No longer would people merely play games on their phones. Now, their lives would be the game. Haohen murmured to himself, despairing at the madness of the system. If everyone in the world was after him, what was the point of running? Suddenly, his thoughts were interrupted by a shout. It was Rinjunki, overwhelmed as she fought the Earth-type level 3 giant Wolf King. Seeing Rinjunki nearly defeated by the monster, Haohen panicked. He couldn't bear the thought of her falling in battle. Quickly, he turned his attention to Wanxiang, urging it to provide him with items and equipment. As the supposed savior, he couldn't be defeated by a bunch of dogs right at the start. His desperation was palpable as he pleaded for the means to fight back and protect himself in this terrifying new reality. Wanxiang responded confidently, stating that it was there to give Haohen the ultimate cheat. The rules were simple. Haohen would please Wanxiang to earn points, which could then be exchanged for chances to draw cards. These cards could grant him skills, equipment, elixirs, or spiritual beasts. Haohen, trying to understand, asked if pleasing meant performing in a certain way. Wanxiang affirmed, explaining that Haohen being ridden by Rinjunki earlier was impressive and thus, he would be rewarded with 30 points. Wanxiang elaborated that using 30 points, Haohen could draw one card. Red for skills, blue for equipment, and gold for elixirs. As Haohen comprehended the explanation, 3 cards materialized in front of him. Resolute, he grabbed the red card, declaring his choice to draw a skill. A notification popped up, congratulating him on obtaining a C-level skill, Blazing Explosion Fist. The skill had a fire attribute with an attack power of 300, bonus damage of 100 to wood attribute, and minus 50 to earth attribute. The duration was 5 minutes. Along with the notification, a wristband appeared, and Haohen was instructed to place the acquired skill point on it to activate and use the skill. Determined to turn the tide, Haohen prepared to harness the new power bestowed upon him, ready to face the imminent threats with his newfound strength. Having acquired a new skill, Haohen assessed the situation with a hint of irony. Despite the fire attribute of his newly gained skill and the earth attribute of his opponent, he resolved to make the best of the situation, determined to fight as if there were no other options. Outside, Rinjunki struggled against the werewolves. Overwhelmed and pushed back, she fell to the ground. As the werewolf closed in, preparing to deliver the final blow, Rinjunki murmured her last words, resigned to her fate. She expressed her regret for failing her mission and her hope to repay her father's kindness in the next life. Just as the werewolf's attack was about to strike Rinjunki, Haohen rushed in to save her. He confronted the beast with fierce determination, shouting to keep its claws away from him. Using his newly acquired skill, he unleashed a flaming punch that sent the werewolf flying, defeating it with ease. However, as one werewolf fell, others quickly turned their attention to Haohen. Rinjunki, seeing the incoming threat, shouted a warning. With calm resolve, Haohen dismissed the minor attackers, repelling them with a single powerful gesture of his fist. Undeterred by the distractions, Haohen charged toward the werewolf boss, declaring his intent to defeat it. With a powerful and decisive attack, he swiftly defeated the boss with a single blow, showcasing his newfound strength and resolving to turn the tide of battle. As Haohen defeated the pack of werewolves, a notification appeared before him, announcing, Apocalypse Game Guide. In the face of overwhelming power, attribute bonuses can be ignored. Hao-hin examined his information window, his gaze fixed on the details laid out before him. He contemplated the significance of the notification, trying to understand how it related to his current situation and attributes. The message hinted at a shift in the game mechanics, suggesting that sheer power could override the usual attribute bonuses. Hao-hin's focus sharpened as he assessed his new status, realizing the implications for his strategy moving forward. Wanxiang's voice boomed with excitement, proclaiming the thrill and awesomeness of its game, eager for Hao-hin's enthusiastic response. Hao-hin, meanwhile, was preoccupied with repairing his house, which had been wrecked during the werewolf attack. Annoyed by Wanxiang's persistent cheerfulness, he retorted that he didn't like playing games. Suddenly, Renjunki interrupted, reminding Hao-hin about continuing with their ditty business. Hao-hin paused, reflecting on Wanxiang's earlier threat that he would be killed once the extraction was complete. After a moment of contemplation, he decided to prioritize his immediate need and told Renjunki that he was heading out to buy some late-night snacks, asking her to wait. As Hao-hin opened his front door to leave, someone abruptly shouted and pushed him back inside. Hao-hin was quickly pinned down by a girl who introduced herself as Special Agent Lin Fei from the Special Operations Bureau. She informed him of their mission to investigate an abnormal intruder in his home. Without delay, she commanded her subordinates to search the premises, adding another layer of urgency and complication to Hao-hin's already chaotic situation. Lin Fei, with a commanding tone, instructed her team to search every detail of the house thoroughly, leaving no corner unchecked. As the officers conducted their search, Hao-hin anxiously wondered if Renjunki had managed to escape detection. He was relieved she hadn't been found, knowing it would have spelled serious trouble for him. In a bid to prove his innocence, Hao-hin hurriedly asserted his good citizen status, emphasizing his clean record and lack of bad habits. As he was speaking, Wanxiang appeared suddenly, adding to Hao-hin's frustration. In his irritation and distraction, Hao-hin reflexively swung his hand, accidentally slapping Officer Lin Fei on her butt. Lin Fei, taken aback and enraged by the inappropriate gesture, quickly lost her composure. She ordered her team to arrest Hao-hin, declaring him a pervert and instructing them to take him back to the station. The situation had escalated from a chaotic battle to an even more complicated legal predicament. As Hao-hin was handcuffed and transported to the police station, he desperately pleaded his innocence, but Officer Lin Fei, already irritated, told him to be quiet. During the transport, Hao-hin observed the chaos unfolding on the streets and murmured to himself about the widespread disorder affecting the world. Meanwhile, Lin Fei noticed a criminal activity occurring nearby. A group was robbing the treasury. She promptly reported the incident to headquarters, requesting immediate assistance to stop the criminals. On the other end, an officer instructed Lin Fei to focus on her primary task of investigating the scene, informing her that Squad 2 had been dispatched to handle the abnormal individuals and recover the unknown invading objects. Despite this, Lin Fei, frustrated by the additional trouble caused by the robbers, argued that heavy weapons should be used to deal with them. The officer reminded her that the director's orders were to follow protocol, and the communication ended with a firm directive to stay on task. Lin Fei's frustration simmered as she prepared to continue with her assignment, all while the world outside spiraled into further chaos. As Hao-hin was placed in the interrogation room, he anxiously inquired about the length of his wait, but his question went unanswered. Frustrated, he pondered the dire situation he was in, feeling trapped by the system that seemed determined to ruin him. He considered confessing everything, convinced that he was a victim of circumstances beyond his control. Suddenly, Wanxiang's voice appeared through the CCTV, berating Hao-hin for being caught despite his newfound power. Wanxiang expressed disappointment, making Hao-hin's frustration flare. In response, Hao-hin angrily pointed his middle finger at the camera, blaming Wanxiang for using his photos indiscriminately and turning him into a target in both worlds. In the observation room, Lin Fei commented on her interrogation tactic, believing that isolating Hao-hin would break his mental defenses quickly. She was intrigued to learn about his behavior under pressure. The officer on duty reported that Hao-hin was making faces at the camera, misinterpreting the gesture as a taunt directed at her. Lin Fei's expression darkened, realizing that Hao-hin's psychological resilience was stronger than she had anticipated. She decided to take over the interrogation herself, determined to uncover the truth through her own methods. Tang Xiao approached Lin Fei with an ingratiating smile, attempting to charm her with a proposition for late-night snacks after work. Despite his persistent advances, Lin Fei remained uninterested, her expression cold and resolute. Tang Xiao, undeterred, pressed on, emphasizing his care for Lin Fei and promising an unforgettable night. However, Lin Fei's patience wore thin. She warned Tang Xiao that she knew his true nature well and threatened him with severe consequences if he continued to pursue her in such a manner. The interaction drew the attention of those around them, and whispers began to circulate. Observers murmured about Tang Xiao's repeated rejections. Noting his persistence despite his lack of success, comments surfaced questioning his motives, suggesting that his interest in Lin Fei was not genuine but rather an attempt to leverage her connections with the director for personal gain. The murmurs reflected a growing sentiment that Tang Xiao's interest was opportunistic, and he had only begun to pursue Lin Fei after her father's promotion to director. As Lin Fei interrogated Houhan, her questions were sharp and insistent. She demanded to know the details of the unknown intrusion that had occurred at his house, pressing him on why the initial wave of the attack had targeted his residence. Her frustration was evident as she confronted him with the fact that his wall had been breached from the outside. Houhan, however, remained evasive, feigning ignorance about the situation. He insisted that he had no knowledge of the events Lin Fei was referring to. Lin Fei, unyielding in her pursuit of the truth, continued to challenge him, questioning what had broken into his home and why those involved had been searching for him. Her determination to unravel the mystery was palpable, driven by the urgency of the situation and her commitment to uncovering the truth. Tang Xiao's face was a mask of grim determination as he inspected the object before him. "This device is more valuable than I imagined," he said, his voice laced with a mix of awe and satisfaction. A wicked smile began to curl at the corners of his lips as he continued. "With this in hand, there's no one left to appease. Lin Fei, brace yourself. You're going to regret ever crossing me." The on-duty officer, concerned about the potential need for overnight investigation, questioned whether the director had requested verification of the evidence quantity. His query implied that a thorough investigation might be required. Tang Xiao, checking a list of tasks, responded with uncertainty about the director's specific instructions. He then inquired if all the unidentified items recently recovered had been catalogued. The officer confirmed that these items were indeed organized on shelves 19, 20, and 21. Acknowledging the officer's hard work, Tang Xiao expressed his appreciation and quickly wrapped up the task. He then made a decisive move, finishing the on-duty officer on the spot. As Tang Xiao discovered the coveted item, his eyes gleamed with admiration. "You're a remarkable find," he whispered, his voice tinged with a sense of reverence. "It's a shame to leave you hidden away in this forsaken corner. Come with me. Together, we'll seize the world and make our mark." Upon receiving the alarming news, Lin Wanshan, the director of the Special Operations Bureau, was visibly shocked and angered. The report revealed that Tang Xiao had killed a colleague, a revelation that prompted immediate concern. An officer confirmed the severity of the situation, stating that the surveillance footage had been retrieved and clearly showed Tang Xiao's actions. Another officer added that, despite the gravity of the situation, Tang Xiao had not yet managed to escape. He was still within the bureau. The surveillance room was actively scanning for him. Before more details could emerge, a hurried report announced that Tang Xiao had been located. He had entered the evidence room 20 minutes earlier and had yet to exit. This report caused immediate alarm among the officers, who questioned Tang Xiao's intentions and the implications of his actions. Lin Wanshan took command, asserting that the situation was beyond negotiation. His resolution was firm. Regardless of Tang Xiao's plans, the fact that he had killed a colleague meant he would face severe consequences. Lin Wanshan decided to personally oversee the special operations to deal with Tang Xiao, determined to ensure justice was served. As the officers prepared to arrest Tang Xiao, the officer reported that they had secured the downstairs area, leaving no escape routes through the windows. Lin Wanshan, determined to resolve the situation swiftly, ordered his team to move forward and breach the door. However, before the officers could act, the door was suddenly blown apart, and Tang Xiao emerged from the debris. He greeted the officers with a taunting remark about their extensive mobilization and apparent enthusiasm for overtime. In response, the remaining officers quickly raised their weapons and opened fire on Tang Xiao. Despite the barrage of bullets, Tang Xiao remained unharmed, protected by a metal armor that deflected the assault. This unexpected development alarmed the officers. As they realized Tang Xiao had activated an unidentified invading object, escalating the situation further. With an air of composure, Lin Wanshan issued the command to initiate anti-metal tactics. His team promptly responded, launching tanks of liquid nitrogen at Tang Xiao in an attempt to neutralize his metal armor. Tang Xiao, unfazed by the attack, scoffed at the ineffectiveness of the nitrogen. He derisively declared that he would demonstrate true terror, intensifying the threat he posed. In reaction to the escalating danger, Lin Wanshan ordered an evacuation, sounding the alarm to ensure the safety of everyone in the vicinity. He then prepared to confront Tang Xiao directly. As the chaos unfolded, Tang Xiao mocked Lin Wanshan, underestimating his adversary's ability to withstand the confrontation. The two figures clashed in a fierce battle, exchanging powerful blows. Their combat was intense, with both combatants using their flaming fists in a dramatic display of skill and strength. Inside the interrogation room, Lin Fei, fiercely questioning Haohen, pressed him against the table. Her demands for information about the mysterious events in his room were cut short by the sudden blare of a warning alarm. Startled, she rushed to the door, only to find chaos unfolding outside. People were scrambling, shouting, "Tang Xiao has mutated! Run!" As Lin Fei tried to assess the situation, Tang Xiao made a dramatic entrance, greeting her with a menacing, "My dear, we meet again." Lin Fei, sensing the grave threat, quickly aimed her gun at him, her resolve unwavering. Meanwhile, Haohen, feeling the aftermath of the ordeal, muttered about the chaos and the aggressive actions of Lin Fei. His irritation was compounded when he saw Lin Fei being forcefully thrown back into the interrogation room by Tang Xiao. The room, now a battleground of tension and violence, was filled with a sense of impending danger. Tang Xiao forcefully pinned Lin Fei down, a grim smile spreading across his face as he taunted her. Lin Fei, overwhelmed by the situation, pleaded desperately for help, her eyes searching for any sign of rescue. Haohen, caught in the crossfire and trying to distance himself from the chaos, awkwardly protested his unwilling involvement. As he prepared to leave the room, Tang Xiao, still preoccupied with his assault, ordered him out. Just as Haohen was about to make his exit, Wanxiang's voice crackled through the CCTV, hurling scornful remarks at Tang Xiao. Misinterpreting the voice as coming from Haohen, Tang Xiao's anger flared. He threatened Haohen, misunderstanding the situation entirely. Haohen, trembling and desperate, tried to explain that the taunts were not his doing. Despite his pleas, Tang Xiao's rage only grew, and he warned Haohen to leave immediately, but the taunts continued. "Useless trash. Incapable, impotent. Do you think you can do it?" Enraged and unable to see past his own anger, Tang Xiao declared his intention to tear Haohen apart. The room, filled with tension and conflict, was now a dangerous arena where survival seemed uncertain. As Tang Xiao's attack surged toward Haohen, panic overtook him. In a frantic attempt to save himself, Haohen drew a card, hoping it would not be a useless skill. A notification appeared, revealing a new acquisition. C-level skill. Blood Dragon Pillar. With the newly acquired skill at his disposal, Haohen swiftly launched a counterattack against Tang Xiao. The powerful strike allowed him to rescue Lin Fei from her precarious position. Seizing the opportunity, Haohen and Lin Fei made a hasty escape from the chaotic scene. Tang Xiao, pushed back by Haohen's unexpected strength, muttered in frustration. His initial shock gave way to a grim amusement. He recognized that he had underestimated Haohen's capabilities. With a dark grin, Tang Xiao relished the challenge, viewing the unforeseen turn of events as a way to make the game more engaging. Gasping for breath and feeling a rush of relief, Haohen exclaimed that he had finally escaped the immediate danger. Suddenly, Wanxiang materialized before him, chastising him for his perceived cowardice. His reproach was sharp, questioning how Haohen could be so fearful despite being the so-called chosen savior. Haohen, still agitated from the recent ordeal, retorted with frustration. He expressed his disbelief at the expectations placed upon him, pointing out the overwhelming number of skill points Tang Xiao had and questioning how he could possibly defeat such an opponent. Wanxiang, maintaining a mocking tone, urged Haohen to overcome his fears. He emphasized that it was merely equipment and insisted that by pleasing him, Haohen could obtain as much as he wanted. Lin Fei, overhearing the exchange, expressed her disdain for the situation. She was dismayed by the absurdity of Wanxiang's demands and the chaos that seemed to follow. In an attempt to clarify the situation, Hao-hin tried to deflect blame from himself. He insisted that he was not at fault, shifting the blame to Wanxiang. He described how Wanxiang's apocalyptic game had shattered the dimensional wall, leading to an invasion of game items and characters into their world, further escalating the chaos. Lin Fei, upon understanding the full scope of the situation, deduced that Tang Xiao had exploited the chaos to enhance his power by acquiring the items the Special Operations Bureau had recovered. Hao-hin's voice rang out with urgency, demanding to know Lin Fei's intentions. Her response was immediate and filled with desperation. She was determined to find her father, the only person who could potentially subdue Tang Xiao. Yang Xiang's intervention was both practical and grim. He directed everyone's attention to a monitor displaying troubling footage. The image revealed Lin Fei's father, grievously burned and barely conscious, having just survived a violent clash with Tang Xiao. The severity of his injuries suggested that he was clinging to life by a thread. Seeing the shocking sight of her half-dead father drove Lin Fei to act recklessly, her heart pounding with fear and determination as she sprinted towards the exit. But Hao-hin intervened sharply, his command clear and stern. He warned that rushing out now would be a suicide mission. Wanxiang, observing the growing chaos, added to the urgency by displaying another piece of footage. This new video showed a three-headed wolf advancing rapidly, its approach a looming threat that only heightened the sense of imminent danger. Lin Fei, now panicked and pleading, implored for their help. Her voice trembled with desperation as she promised to do anything if they would assist in rescuing her father. The stakes were high, and her pleas reflected the gravity of the situation and her willingness to risk everything for her father's safety. As Lin Fei's desperate plea hung in the air, Wanxiang's response came with a new twist. He urged her to spark excitement in Hao-hin. Confusion clouded Lin Fei's expression as she tried to understand what was meant by making Hao-hin excited. She slightly pulled her skirt up, attempting to follow the directive. However, Wanxiang's response was dismissive and scornful. He found her attempt lacking, calling it plain and uninspiring. His mocking tone underscored his dissatisfaction, suggesting that Lin Fei's allure was not having the desired effect on Hao-hin. The criticism stung, and Lin Fei's resolve hardened. Fueled by a mix of embarrassment and defiance, she vowed to put forth her best effort. She vowed to give everything she had to captivate Hao-hin.